The silence doesn't look like most people think it looks like. It doesn't look like a man sitting alone in a dark room staring at the wall. Most of the time, it looks like the most put together guy in the building, the one who always has an answer, who stays calm when the roof is coming down, who cracks a joke right when things get uncomfortable, who never asks for anything, never seems rattled, never seems like he needs a single thing from anybody. And I know exactly what that looks like because I perfected it. I got so good at looking fine that I generally confused myself sometimes, which sounds funny until you realize that it's actually one of the most dangerous places a man can be. My name is Brett Beavers. I'm the founder and CEO of TRB Hope Foundation, veteran and former law enforcement officer. And most importantly, I'm a man who is still learning the difference between actually being okay and being really good at a performance okay. Welcome to episode 2 of this 5-part series for Men's Mental Health Awareness Month and PTSD Awareness Month. Today we're talking about the silence, where it comes from, why it hits veterans and first responders especially hard, why the systems built to fix it have in a lot of ways made it worse, and what it actually takes before any of that changes. Here's what most people get wrong about why men don't ask for help. They call it ego, stubbornness, toxic masculinity, if you're on that particular vocabulary plan. That's not what I see. What I see is training. Especially if you put on a badge or wore a uniform, you were trained deliberately and effectively to suppress. Not as a character flaw, but as a survival skill. You learn to compartmentalize under pressure because the mission required it. You learn to push through pain because stopping wasn't an option. You learn that the man who holds it together is the man who keeps everyone else alive. That training saved lives. I'm not criticizing it. But here's what nobody told you when you came home or when you got off shift. That same mechanism that had you effective in the field is working against you now. You kept the switch. You lost the context. It's like wearing full body armor at Kroger. Technically, it still works. It's doing exactly what it's supposed to do, but you don't necessarily need it there. Well, depending on where you live. And after a while, you stop noticing you even have it on. And that is a trap because what happens over time is you stop being able to tell the difference between who you actually are and what you built to survive. You start living as the armor, functioning, moving, keeping people from worrying, keeping the mission going. And inside, a version of you that has nothing to do with the armor is quietly suffocating. And here's why that matters for isolation especially. When the armor is working, nobody can see it. That's the entire point of it. But the same wall that keeps people from seeing your wound also keeps people from reaching you. And a man who cannot be reached is a man who is alone, even when there are people all around him. The armor does not just hide the pain, it completes the isolation entirely. The TRB method calls what you built the false self. And I want to be clear, it's not a lie you're telling people, it's a structure you built to survive something real. You built it because you had to. It worked. But a structure built for survival is not the same thing as a life. And at some point, the thing you built to protect you starts to contain you instead. Now let's talk about the system, because especially veterans and first responders deserve an honest conversation about why so many of them have tried the official channels once at least and never went back. The mental health system was built with the right intention. I'm not tearing down the people inside it. I actually respect them highly. But there is a fundamental mismatch a lot of the time at the core of how it operates. There are two kinds of problems a human being faces: complicated ones and complex ones. A complicated problem is hard, but it has a finish line. You bring enough expertise and resources, you get a resolution. A fractured bone, tax return, hard but finite. Solve it once, it stays solved. But a complex problem cannot be permanently solved. You live with it. You move through it. You grow inside it. That's your trauma, identity, worth, faith, relationships. Those are complex situations. The mental health system keeps applying complicated tools to a complex human problem. A diagnosis, treatment protocol, 8 sessions, and a pamphlet. I want you to picture the moment a combat veteran walks into a clinical office for the first time. He fought every instinct in his body to be in that chair. He has told himself this is weak, then argued himself into going anyway. He sits down and someone hands him a worksheet. I'm not making that up. That's the actual experience of a significant number of men I've talked to. And that man drove home, threw the worksheet in the passenger seat, and he never came back. Not because he didn't need help, because the help didn't feel like help. It felt like being processed. When you apply a complicated tool to a complex human problem, you don't solve it. You send the man further into himself. And now he is more isolated than when he started, which is the exact opposite of what he needed when he walked through the door. And when the system fails a man like that, he doesn't try a different door. He goes back to the only thing that he's ever felt reliable with, the armor, the silence, and he waits alone for something to change that isn't going to change on its own. Which brings me to the thing I need you to actually hear. Nobody's coming to save you. I know, stay with me. That is not despair. That is actually the most liberating thing you will ever hear, because the silence is what waiting sounds like from the inside. And the moment you stop waiting for rescue is the moment you stop being a prisoner of the silence and start being someone who moves. And I say that as someone who gave rescue a genuine opportunity to show up. I waited. I was lost. I was confused. I left the door wide open for a long time. If something was going to come along to fix this without me having to do anything terrifying, I made myself very available for that outcome. It didn't show up. What showed up instead was the understanding that the way out was going to require me, that I was going to have to take a step before I felt ready. That clarity comes after the move, not before it. For men who have been trained their entire lives that asking for help is failure, reframing the equation from waiting to be rescued, being the one who moves first, lands differently. That is not weakness dressed up in different clothes. That is ownership. And ownership is where the work actually starts. So if nobody's coming and the system didn't work and the silence is just waiting with better posture, then what actually moves first? Truth moves first. The first pillar of the TRB method is truth, and the definition matters. Seeing clearly is the first act of courage. Before any framework, before any process, just one question, and it is the most important question a man in the silence can ask himself. Am I being honest with myself? Not self-analysis, not therapy, not performing vulnerability in front of an audience, just honesty. That is the door. Everything else is behind it. Here's what truth requires in practice. Every person carries a story that was assigned to them, whether it be by pain, by failure, by other people. Over time, we build a version of ourselves designed to survive that story. And truth requires being willing to look at both, the wound and the armor, not just the armor, not just the functional version of yourself that showed up today, the wound underneath it too. And before I go any further, I need you to hear this. Your worth is not determined by your worst moment, and it is not determined by your best achievement either. It is not the thing that happened to you. It is not the thing you built to survive it. It is something underneath both of those things, something that was there before the hardest chapter, and it is still there now. That is where truth begins to separate what is real from what was assigned to you. Now, here's the part I don't soften, because the framework doesn't soften it, and neither does my story. The anchor underneath all of this, the thing that held when everything else gave way, for me, that is Jesus Christ. Not as a religious requirement, not as a price of admission to this conversation, as the actual ground. The thing that was true when nothing else was and will always be true. If you're a Christian, if you're faith curious, there's room for you here. If you're not there yet, the principles hold regardless. Truth is truth wherever you begin. But I'm not going to pretend the foundation is something other than what it is. Faith is the foundation of this framework. It is not a footnote. It's not a disclaimer. The foundation. Let me tell you what the silence looked like in my life. Not the bottom. That's in episode 4. But the years between nearly being unalived in 2011 and my bottom, from the outside, I looked functional all the time, building things, showing up, moving forward. I was even the guy people called when things got hard because I had been through something real and I was still standing. Inside, I was running on fumes, and the only thing keeping me from acknowledging that was this. Stopping felt like it was going to cost me more than I had left. Because if I stopped and looked at what was actually in there, I was going to have to deal with it for once and for all. And I genuinely did not know if I had enough left to survive doing that. That is the deal the silence offers. It says you don't have to feel this right now. Just keep moving. Just get through today. And here's the thing. The silence keeps its end of the deal, right up until it doesn't. The debt accumulates. It does not forgive. It does not forget. And eventually there was a moment, one specific moment, where the armor cracked just enough that I could not look away anymore. Where the honest answer to, am I okay, was finally louder than everything I had built to drown it out. That moment is the actual threshold, not the bottom, just the moment before the bottom when truth started to get through. We will go all the way there in episode 4. Here's where I want to leave you today. Think about that armor. Yours specifically. The version of yourself you built to survive your story. It served you. I'm not asking you to tear it down today. Just one question, though. 5 minutes, no audience, no performance, just you and the honest answer. Is the armor protecting you right now, or is it containing you? That question is the door, really. That is the truth in the simplest form. And if you can answer it honestly, even just to yourself, you have already taken the first step out of the silence. One more thing before I let you go. If you're in a hard season right now, if you are confused, disoriented, or feel like you're going backward, the TRB method has a name for where you are. It's called the threshold. Confusion at that level is almost always the edge of something real. You have not left the road. You're still on it. Episode 3 is going to drop on June 15th. We're going to talk about what post-traumatic stress and moral injury actually did to me, the real version. No armor on that one. Please subscribe, share this with a man who has been quiet lately, and I'll see you in the next one.